Hello, everyone. Welcome to Nails and Beauty Talk. I am your host, ASIATHABIRD. I have a very special guest with me today. She is the owner of Wildflower Nails. She's a nail artist and a nail judge. Please welcome Lauren Wireman. Hello, Lauren. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
That's great. That's awesome. Now, Lauren, I want to go ahead and get started into the very beginning. So, where are you originally from and how did you get started into the nail industry?
I'm originally from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do when I grew up. I struggled a lot with that. I was good at art, but I was also good at math, and I did like really well at school, but I hated school so much. And where I grew up, everybody just went to college. Like there was never a discussion about any other option. And I wish there would have been, because I feel like I probably would have gone to like art school or beauty school had it been an option, but it wasn't. So I ended up going to East Carolina University. I was going to become an art teacher, but once I got to college and realized that like I still had to do math and history and all this stuff, I was like, oh my God, like I hate this. This is not what I want to do with my life.
Right.
And so I hardly went to class at all. I would go on test days and I would do the tests and I would still learn the material, but I just hated sitting in class. Even though I passed all my tests and I turned in all my assignments, my teachers had no mercy on me whatsoever. And so I ended up, being on academic probation after the first semester. And then, after the second semester, I wasn't able to pull my grades up and my parents were like, well, we're not going to pay for this. So they basically said like, what are you going to do? And all my friends at college were like, you should go to beauty school. So I was like, okay. Cause I just had no direction. I suffered a lot with like mental health issues too. I started having panic attacks when I was like 15 and was diagnosed bipolar. I think really what it was this whole time was like undiagnosed ADHD. But we didn't really know that at the time, but it really explains a lot. So anyway, I just kind of got like thrown into beauty school. And when I got there, I was like, oh my God, I love this. Like, these are my people. They're creative. And, we don't have to do all these dumb subjects. And if we are doing history, at least it's in regards to something I'm interested in. And so that was sort of what got me into the beauty industry. When I graduated school, I did hair. So I graduated in 2000 and did hair for a while. Really wasn't interested in nails. I remember seeing the nail room at school. I don't think I ever went in it. And I remember just thinking to myself, like, why would you even want to do nails? Like, why would you want to compete with the Vietnamese people who seem to have it down to like a science? They're so fast and efficient. Like, why would you even want to do that? And so that was basically as far as the thought ever crossed my mind. And graduated school. Ended up like I had a bunch of crazy stuff happen, got addicted to drugs. I was like totally homeless, prostituting, and ended up in a homeless shelter. And at that time, they were like, give your life to Jesus. And I was like, what? And then I was like, okay, well, maybe I'll actually try that, because I had tried like everything else to get off drugs and to get my life straightened out. And I was just one of those kids that like really didn't have direction and couldn't figure out what it was that I wanted to do. So in that whole process, it was kind of like an adventure to me. And the only door that opened when it was time to look for a job was at a salon. And I didn't want to go back in the beauty industry at all. I wanted to just have like a whole new life and a whole new direction, but it was the only door that opened. The only girl I could hang with was the nail girl, because I was trying to be clean and sober. And she was like the only one that didn't party. So I hung with her. And so then she was like, oh, let me teach you nails. You're so artistic. And so that was sort of the beginning of how I got into nails.
Oh, that's a really cool story. I remember you kind of shared your story back when you was competing and Nailed It on Oxygen. So I was a bit familiar with your story when I watched that TV show that came out a couple years ago. Now, in terms of like nails, like who are like your favorite nail artists?
Well, when I was getting started pretty much out there, because it was the early 2000s. So Robin Moses had
Right.
like a YouTube channel, and it was like her or else organic nails that were in Spanish. And that was like
Mhm.
it. And so there wasn't, it just is nothing like it is now. There weren't
Right.
these like, you couldn't go to Instagram and see everybody and their cool nails that they did. I mean, there just wasn't a way to even see it. And
Mhm.
Nails Magazine and Nail Pro Magazine were really the only thing out there that actually published other nail techs' work.
Mhm.
I mean, people weren't even hardly putting it on Facebook.
Mhm.
So back in the day, like I love Robin Moses. I thought she was just the coolest ever. And I followed her for a long time. And I just loved how like free spirited she was. And so she was definitely one of my favorites back in the day.
Mhm. Yeah, I was the same way too. Like Robin Moses, some of her work was really cool.
Yeah.
And I used to like her content all the time, just looking at her content, her nail tutorials, or of course organic nails, like how you said, the Spanish nail system brand. I looked at another YouTuber, her name is Love for Nails, and she used to do nails all the time. I think she still does nails, like, but I would look at her nail art tutorials all the time when I first started getting into nails. And this is like when I
Yeah.
like this when I was like 14 or so years old. So I was like, oh, this is really, really cool. Now, so how could you describe the nail scene where you live?
Well, I just moved to the Atlanta area, and I was in Florida. I was in Florida for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's totally different, totally different.
Mm-hmm.
We were in South Florida in Fort Myers.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like everybody just goes and gets their nails done every few weeks. And that was really the extent of like the services here in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
because there's just so much more opportunity. There's people filming movies all over the place. I was actually looking at even like press-ons and stuff like that are a huge thing in this area. And again, it's just because of all of the film and all of the production stuff that goes on here in Atlanta. So
Mm-hmm.
um, very different here. I'm still getting a feel for it, honestly. And I'll tell you something funny, like when I used to go cross country teaching classes, so I would do probably like 40 classes a year in different cities all across the country. I could never get like any signups in Atlanta. I'd have like two people sign up. I'd have to cancel the class.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just a very different culture here. I feel like it's still kind of racially divided, which I hate. Even like when we found a church here, I was like, I want to make sure that we go to a church that has like Spanish people, Black people, white people,
Mm-hmm.
everybody, because in Florida, it's very like melting pot where we were. And it was just such a mix of cultures, and it was really fun. But here, it's just like crazy. There's like, I live in a suburb called Douglasville. And there's like a few Vietnamese salons that are here.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the nail artists typically are working like out of their home, and they may
Right.
be licensed and they may not be licensed. And it's just like
Mm-hmm.
there's really not any salons that I've found or that anybody like really knows of in the Douglasville area that are not Vietnamese salons. So I'm like, shoot, I should open a salon here. But then I'm like, no, I don't want to deal with all that mess.
Yeah, I find that very interesting. Like, I never been to Atlanta, but that's something I would love to go and just see what Atlanta's like, especially the nail scene down there. But also the school that I went to is called SCAD, which is Savannah College of Art and Design, and that's in
Yeah.
Atlanta. So yeah, but I went to the Savannah location, but I know it's in Atlanta. So
Yeah.
it's very interesting. Like I've heard about stuff like with Atlanta, like and what they do, in certain events. It's pretty popping in Atlanta. So
Yeah.
within in terms of within nails, so you have your own business called Wildflower Nails, where you
Mhm.
sell different products. So why is it called Wildflower Nails, and what was the whole decision behind having your own nail business?
Well, that's kind of funny how it all happened. I never really set out to have my own nail brand. Um, I really didn't. I wanted to teach. Like, I love teaching, and teaching is what I'm most passionate about. I feel like it's so sad because these, kids go to nail school. They a lot of times are paying out of pocket because
Mhm.
there's not enough hours to qualify for federal financial aid. So they're like scraping and scrounging, going into debt half the time to pay for their nail education. And then they
Mhm.
graduate school and they realize that they can't even do nails. And
Mhm.
so they're not prepared 9 times out of 10 when they leave school. And this is where, um, you know, it makes me like sick, like knowing like Lavette Cephas is one of my most favorite people, and she has the most incredible story, just about her life growing up. She raised like all of her younger siblings, ended up pregnant as a teenager. There was this really great organization that helped pay for her to go to nail school. I think they paid like maybe half of her tuition. But for someone like her who worked so hard and sacrificed so much to be able to go to school, to do that, and then to leave school and still not be able to do nails, like what the heck? Like what the heck? And
Mhm.
so it drives me absolutely nuts. And I feel like changing the whole education system in the United States is an enormous undertaking
Mhm.
that's going to take like an act of Congress and all sorts of stuff. So it's like, what can we do in the meantime to try to like help people to try to fix this? And that's where I found like myself trying to grab these people as they come out of school and say to
Mhm.
them, listen, like I can try to help you get to where you're going. I can try to teach you what you need to learn, because not everybody has the opportunity to go work at a salon that's going to continue to train them. A lot of
Right.
people graduate and their opportunity is to go work in a hair salon as the only nail tech. And it's like, there's no one there. And then nail techs, unfortunately, can be so competitive and so stingy with their knowledge that it's like, even if there is another nail tech, they might see you as a huge threat and not want to help you or teach you a thing.
Mhm.
So there's just a huge deficit. It's like, when I went to drug rehab, it's like you're locked up in rehab 24/7. And then there has to be like a step down program before you just re-enter society. And a lot of times there isn't. But
Right.
having that sort of step in between really sets you up for success. And it's the same thing with nail school. It's like there's no step in between for people. And
Mhm.
so they go to school, spend all this money, get in debt, and then they can't even
Mhm.
go do nails.
Right.
So that's what really drove me to start teaching. And I was trying to get into an event to teach, and they wouldn't let me in because I didn't have a booth with products to sell. And I'm like, for real? And so I was like cutting my own brushes and making my own paints and doing stuff like that. And everybody always wanted it. So when I got invited to that show, I thought, well, shoot, I'll just bottle up some of my stuff and get some brushes made. And that way I can have a stupid booth so that I can teach the class I want to teach. And so it was always very education focused for me. But then people always wanted what I used when I would teach. And so that was where the product stuff started like kind of growing, because back then, in 2014, we were the only company selling nail art products, dedicated to solely selling nail art products. You
Mhm.
had companies like CMD, who I love, OPI, all of these big league companies, and they might release like a set of nail art brushes here or there, but it's just so trashy. It's like a promotional item. No offense, Jan, I love you. But like it was just this really kind of like afterthought of a thing. And what people were really wanting was like high quality brushes that would last, that had lids on them. Like there was just so much, like, here's what I could really use instead of having a set of like all black brushes with lids and I can't tell which brush is which. Like, why not make them colorful like a rainbow? Like all of this type of stuff was such an obvious thing to me. And so that was what we started doing at Wildflowers, and it just snowballed. And then we were the first company to have the silver chrome powder. And it was just like, it wasn't what I set out to do, but it just sort of happened and fell into my lap that way. And, now I'm really proud of all the products that we have and all the thought that goes into them and the quality and the testing and all of that sort of stuff. But when we started, all the big companies wanted to partner with us because they weren't doing nail art. So like CND, OPI, all these companies are like, hey, let's partner together. And
so in terms of you having, considering you have your own nail systems, which is Wildflower Nails. So for someone who wants to start their own like nail brand and pertain to selling their own products and stuff like that, what are some words of advice would you give for someone who wants to start their own nail systems?
There's a lot of things I didn't know when I got started doing products, and I really had to educate myself. I had to learn how to do graphic design. That was something that like you have to know how to do graphic design, because if you don't, you're going to have to hire a graphic designer to do all of your labels and stuff like that. You have to know what the requirements are for labels. In the United States, like per, the FDA. So there's like inner package requirements, there's outer package requirements. There's also ingredients that are like okay, ingredients that are not okay. So you have to know about all of that stuff. But if you're not able to do your own graphics, then someone else is doing them. And if you're going to order from overseas, somewhere like China or somewhere like that, you've got someone over there trying to do your stuff. And a lot of things can get lost in translation. So it becomes a little bit of an issue in that regard. So that's something that I wasn't prepared for and didn't know I would have to get into or do. MSDSs, having MSDSs done, knowing all the ingredients inside and out of what's going into a product. A lot of times companies just want to sell you their stuff, like their white label stuff, and put whatever your logo is on it. And they'll lie about the ingredients because sometimes ingredients are questionable. So you have issues like that. Sometimes you have to verify ingredients and do things like that. It's like A to Z when you do a product, when you really do it properly. So that means designing the package, knowing the ingredients, doing your labels. You have to have instructions for your products. You have to do instructional videos for your products. You have to know the products. You have to figure out how you're going to ship it from point A to point B. If it's a flammable good, that complicates things even more. There have been companies who started out that got busted because they were shipping flammable goods across the country in a way that's not okay. And then they get fined like $125,000 for, shipping flammable goods and not doing it the proper way. You actually have to have like a certification to ship flammable goods as a company. So there's like a lot of stuff like that I think when you go into it, you're like, oh, I'm just going to like make a cute logo. And then I'm going to like put it on the bottle and like, and you just don't think like, oh my God, there's so much stuff that goes into doing products. So I would say really take it slow and really do your research. Definitely. If you want to stand and make it like through the years as a brand and a company, you can't put out bad products, and you have to build trust with your customers. So it's like one thing goes wrong, you either have to make it right or it's just going to kill your company. So it gets scary sometimes.
Yeah. And I like how you said that, because I think that most definitely like research is definitely important, especially if you're putting anything out. And also too is making sure you have the best quality product using the right ingredients. You want to make sure that there's no ingredients that infect a person's nails or a person's skin.
Right. And I mean, you have to have insurance, because that was my biggest nightmare. I was like, God, what if somebody rubs this powder on their nails and they have an allergic reaction, and then suddenly we're being sued? So it's like, you have to have like liability insurance for stuff like that. I mean, there's just a lot. If you're going to manufacture stuff like yourself, the FDA allows you to manufacture cosmetics in your kitchen, like at your house, if you really want to. But if you're going to actually have people working for you and have a facility, then you have to consider like OSHA regulations. And so just a lot of that type of stuff to consider. There's a lot.
Yeah, I'm sure there is. And I like with your brand, you mentioned about like having nail art related products, because I think that's also important too, just as much as like enhancement products. So I think, when people do nail art, you want to have the brushes and the different gel colors and things like that. So I like how you really touched on that, because I think nail art is cool, as well as, with nail enhancements, like doing nails in itself. So I think that's really
Yeah.
important. So I want to get into a little bit in terms of editorial work. So your work has been included in Viet Salon, Nail Pro, and Nails magazine. Now, what has been your whole experience doing editorial nail work, and how does someone get into doing editorial type nails?
It's really networking, knowing the right people. That was really how it happened for me. And that wasn't a direction that I wanted to go. But I did it because I thought any experience that I have, I'm able to pass on to students. And so that was really like, I had the opportunity to do J-Lo's nails. I did them one time. I was like, all it takes is one time to be able to tell my students like the story and how to prepare and like
Right.
all of goes into doing a celebrity. I mean, that was my first ever celebrity. It was the first human being on the face of earth that I ever glued nails onto, was Jennifer Lopez. Not, I mean, I didn't even have time to like test it or practice on someone. So it was like terrifying, but really doing those types of things, like whether it's celebrities or editorial, it's all about networking. Like, never burn your bridges as much as you want to burn bridges, because I'm telling you, like, there's been some times where I've really wanted to burn bridges. Patty Yankee is someone who I'm friends with, and she's worked on, like, I mean, everyone. She does like Lindsay Lohan, and she's done the Kardashians, and she's done I mean, just so many different celebrities, Katy Perry, and so I was at a trade show teaching, and she called me right in the middle of my class and was like, I need you to go do Katy Perry's nails. And I was like, well, I'm in Tennessee teaching, so sorry. But that's basically like how that stuff happens. Some, like, if you really want to get into doing editorial work, I would say move to Chicago, Atlanta, New York, LA, like a big city where there's a ton of that going on in Chicago. So it doesn't necessarily have to be New York or LA or Miami, but those are the places where brands and companies a lot of times are doing their editorial work. And so I mean, sometimes you can do nails from afar and send them, but there always has to be a nail tech that goes in there to actually put them on the model and do that type of stuff. So
Right.
connections and networking like crazy. But yeah, I feel like that's how it happens for a lot of people. It's just who you know. So I always say, like, if you go to a networking event, don't sit with your clique. Like at Wildflowers, they know I have a rule. Like, if we're going to do a trade show and they're going to have like a networking dinner or something like that, like, they know that I don't want them all sitting together at the same table. And I never will. I'll go up to a table of complete strangers. As much as I see my friends and want to go sit with them, it's not the purpose of networking. The purpose of networking is to get to know new people. So I always go and sit at a table of complete strangers and, just introduce myself. I don't introduce myself like as the CEO of Wildflowers either. Like, I just sit down and introduce myself. And sometimes people know who I am, but most of the time they have no clue who I am. And that's fine. And it's great because then I can just have very like real conversations with people and get to know them. And the more people you know, the more, your branches sort of spread out. It's a small industry, like, but it's not. So I feel like we're all kind of connected somehow, some way.
Yeah, most definitely. Very good tips. Now, also, I want to get into like salon business, especially whether it's working in a salon or owning a salon. Now, what are some pieces of advice in terms of like pricing, and also as well as, dealing with different clients?
I ran my own private studio. I loved having a private spot. My husband and I pastored for like several years. And so I always seemed to have women that would like come in and want to share about very personal things. That was just the type of person that I seemed to attract. And I liked creating an environment where they felt comfortable doing that. A salon suite weren't really a thing yet. Now they are. So I feel like, you know, I would have had a salon suite back then, but I ended up finding like a 1,000 square foot storefront that I could afford that actually was less money than renting a room in a salon. And so I did that, had that private place. And as far as like, I was always told that people come to you 30% because of your skills and 70% because they just like you. And I didn't know if I believed that until I really got out in the industry and then like saw the crappy nails that people would get, but they loved their nail girl, you know, and it was like, okay, maybe that is true. So I think that there's something to being yourself. And I think that there's definitely something to the fact that like not everyone's going to like you, and that's totally fine. I would spend my time holding hands with someone for 2 hours that I enjoy spending time with, that's not sucking the life out of me, than someone who does just that, who sucks the life out of you and just drains you. And when you're first getting started, you don't have a lot of choice in the matter. It's like, you just need to make money. But what happens is once you get going, you do have to learn how to like try to get rid of those people. You have to learn how to say no. You have to learn how to refuse services, and that can be very hard to do. But there's definitely ways to do it. I know I took over a girl's clientele, and everyone that came to me had a fungus on their toenails. And it was because she was literally spreading it from person to person. And I couldn't say that to the customers because I didn't want to like badmouth the girl. So I just was like, well, you know, like this isn't, you know, this is not normal and you need to have this looked at by a physician. And they're like, but so-and-so used to do it. And I'm like, okay, I get that. But I have, this was my go-to. I was like, I have customers right now who have compromised immune systems. They're going through chemotherapy. And the last thing that I want to do is spread some type of infection to them, you know, by just like one little thing going wrong when I disinfect my tools. And there's a possibility for that. And I just don't want to run an establishment that puts anyone at risk, especially those clients. And nobody ever argued with me when I would say that. So that worked well for me. But I think like boundaries are important, learning how to say no. Pricing, you don't make your price menu based off of like the salon down the street. That's the absolute worst way to do it. Tina Alberino is a friend of mine. She's got a blog called This Ugly Beauty Business, and there's so much free content on there. She's someone that when I was starting out, I would read a lot of her blogs and learn a lot from her, just about how to do price menus and, you know, establishing boundaries and things like that. And that was a great resource for me.
Yeah, most definitely. And I find that very interesting because in terms of dealing with clients, because you're absolutely right. You have to make sure your clients are safe. You don't want to run the risk of spreading something that, you know, especially something that, you know, a person can't get rid of. You know what I mean?
Right.
So the client safety is most definitely, I can definitely agree. That's the number one priority. And I used to work at a spa. So we have to make sure that not only we're taking care of the clients, but making sure we're keeping our tools disinfected and clean. So
right.
that's the main thing about that. So in terms of nail competing, so I want to switch gears a little bit.
Okay.
So you've competed in Nailed It as well as Nails Next Top Nail Artists. So what has been your whole experiences doing those nail competitions?
Well, it's funny. Like there were people around me in my city who would go to Premier Orlando every year and they would compete like in the actual live competitions. And always like, oh my God, I could never do that because like I would get explosive diarrhea right in the middle of it. And then like all of my hard work would just be for nothing, you know, because I'd be like, I gotta go, and I'd be freaking out. So I was like, I don't think that that's the type of competition, like that high pressure, like locked into like an arena type of situation. I was like, oh God, I wouldn't be able to do that. So when Nails Top Nail Artists came out in the magazine, I was like, oh my gosh, this would be a great competition for me because I don't actually have to like deal with the stress of having to be like locked in a, you know, like in a room somewhere that I can't leave to do nails. That just freaked me out so bad. So Anyway, that was my first competition. It was so much work. After I finished, and you did NTNA too, you know,
Yes.
and you're so talented. I wanted to tell you that, like, you are so incredibly talented.
Thank you.
But NTNA was so much work. I was working full time in the salon. My husband and I were pastoring a church too. So it was like whatever I did, I had to make a decision and I just had to go with it. And I couldn't start my piece over. It was like I just had to go. And after I finished it, someone was like, "Would you do it again?" And I was like, "Heck no." Like, I think the people that re-enter that competition are nuts and like gluttons for torture or something. It was just, it was a lot of work. It was awesome, but it was a lot of work. Gave me a lot of industry connections. I think that was the best part of doing NTNA. So nailed it. Was not something I was even trying to do. I got all the way to the end of NTNA. They flew me out to LA for the finale. And they said to me, the Oxygen Network's here casting for a reality show. I was like, I don't want to talk to them. Like, I don't even want to talk to them. And the editor of Nails Magazine was like, "Oh, just talk." And I was like, "But I don't want to. Like, I don't want to go on a reality show."
Right.
Because when do that, they can make you look however they want you to look. And we were pastoring a church, and I was like, I don't want them to make me look like I hate gay people, or like, I mean, there was just a million things that they could have done. And I was like, it was like, I didn't want to do it.
Right.
And so then first they interviewed me and I told them the crazy story about Jesus and all that. And then they were like, "Oh my God." And so of course they wanted me to be on the show. I was teeter-tottering about doing it until like the very last minute. And then I decided, you know what? It might be cool to go on a platform like the Oxygen Network right after Bad Girls Club comes on and be able to like tell my story. Like maybe someone will hear it and it'll help them. You just never know.
Mm-hmm.
So that was the reason I decided to do it. And I will say they told us before we got out there that just because your nails are the best doesn't mean that you'll win. It is for entertainment purposes. Basically, like, we can make it look however we want to make it look, and we can do whatever we want. And it's not going to be like an actual legit competition. And I think at the beginning, they kind of let it be more of a legit competition. But as I got further towards the end, there was a lot of behind the scenes stuff. I know I'm good friends with Lisa Comfort. She's the one who wrote the show. I'm friends with all the judges that were on there. And so I've heard all the stories of what actually happened behind the scenes of that show. And I'll just leave it at that. But things are not always what they seem. So I was shocked that I got as far as I did on that competition show. Now, what happened after that for me in regards to competition stuff was everybody wanted me to be a judge. Nail Pro came calling, like everybody, Nail Olympia, everybody having competitions wanted me as a judge. And it was just because I was really popular at the time. And it wasn't because like I felt like I was being used, and I also felt like I don't want to go judge people that work so hard to do this stuff and then screw it up or not be fair or not judge correctly. So I went to seek like training to be a judge, but there wasn't really, it didn't exist. And so Lisa Comfort started an organization called INJA, which is the International Nail Judges Association. I contacted her and I was like, I'm so sick of people calling me to judge and me feeling like I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I want to treat these people who pour so much time and effort and energy and money into competing. I want to be as fair as I can be and as knowledgeable as I can be when it comes to judging. So I ended up flying to Argentina to do a training to become an INJA judge. And so now, oh my gosh, I know every category, like there's like 17 categories for pink and white nails, and like how to award the points. When it comes to a smile line, it's like there's 5 possible points and you get this many points for this and this many. Like, is it centered perfectly? Like, are the ears at the exact same place? Is the line fuzzy? Is it crisp? Like, there's so many different like things and ways to award points. But now that I understand all of that so thoroughly, I'm able to judge fairly, and I'm able to help the competitors who are competing and say, like, let me explain to you what graphic quality is, or let me explain to you what rhythm is in an art piece. And so now I'm very passionate about being on the other side of competitions, and I'm very passionate about educating those who are going to be judging and those who are going to be competing, so that everybody sort of has an understanding. Because you enter competitions and you're like, I don't even know what half of these things mean that I'm being judged on, you know? So it's good to know and understand, and it makes you feel good when the judges also know and understand. So
yeah, most definitely, because I like how you brought those certain art terms such as like rhythm and things of that nature, because I think that's something a part of like nail art that we have to understand, especially us as nail artists.
yeah.
Rhythm, harmony, perspective, color palettes, and many of those different aspects to understand within when we're competing in a nail category. So, but yeah, like I remember watching you in your season of Nailed It, and it was really cool to really, see what that whole environment was on TV and stuff. And of course, like how you said, you don't know like everything, in terms of it, because reality TV, so a lot of stuff can be edited and things of that nature. But yeah, so when you're nail judging, like in terms of just like looking at people's nails, what really stands out to you when you judge somebody's nails within any category?
I mean, I would say my favorite thing to see is when someone's consistently bad at something, because it's the easiest thing to fix. I feel like you have to like hold on and like take that in. So for example, if a hand's coming down the line and I'm judging lateral. So lateral is like, the line coming out on the bottom of the enhancement when you look from the side. That's your lateral. And you've got two of them,
Right.
one on each. So my favorite thing that happens is like every left lateral is like drooping down. I love when I see something like that, because it's so easy to say to that competitor, like, all you have to do is change the way that you're seated in your chair when you file your left lateral, and it like will fix them instantly. So like, I know it's such a weird thing, but when there's something like bad but consistent, I'm always like ready to jump out of my seat and like write notes all over their thing, because it's such an easy fix for someone like that. If someone's just all over the place, it's kind of like, oh, where do you begin with them? But when you see something, and with art, I think probably one of my favorite, I've got two favorite categories. One of them is graphic quality, and the other one is variety. And so variety, people think like for example, say it's like a Swarovski competition and you got to put like stones all over the nails. People think variety is like, did I use a bunch of different stuff? This is so funny. These are the things that like when I go get a massage, I'm teaching my massage therapist, I'm explaining to her what variety is with nails, and they're like, oh my God, it's so funny. But I love getting into these conversations. I'm like, it's not using a bunch of different stuff. Like, that's not what variety means. Variety means, did you use different things on purpose to enhance the overall design? So if you're trying to create perspective and you want something to feel like it's coming towards you, did you use larger, brighter stones? And then when the design sort of went back like this, did you use smaller, not so bright stones on that part? So it's using a variety of things, but using them in a way that creates like overall impact in your piece. It's not like, oh, I just used a bunch of different stuff. So like an uneducated judge, unfortunately, would be like, oh, that must mean using a bunch of different stuff, So I love variety. And the other thing that I love is graphic quality. Graphic quality, especially in murals, is, can you see foreground, midground, and background? And most people doing murals have a background. They're like, oh, I'm going to paint some clouds and stuff in the background. And then they just put a bunch of stuff like in the foreground, but there's no midground. When you see an artist that understands graphic quality and doing like all three of those dimensions in their artwork, it's a total game changer. And when I see people do murals that are missing that, and I can spend 5 minutes to explain it to them, suddenly like light bulbs go off and it just takes their piece to a whole nother level. So that's, I think, like what excites me the most, and what I'm most passionate about when it comes to like judging, competitions and things that stick out to me.
Okay, yeah, but I like how you mentioned that. Even still, like some of those like art techniques, I think that's something that I think should be considered when doing nail art, especially like when it comes to, like
Yeah.
you said, 10 nails, when you're trying to do a mural and things like that, especially with my season NTNA. Our first challenge was us doing a mural representing the letter C, N, and the letter D. So yeah, we had to do 3 words that described ourselves, and it had to be like this hand painted mural. So but yeah, so those certain design aspects and principles, I think those are very, very important. And plus it
Mhm.
depends on also the intent too and what your theme is. So it's also boiled down to design choice as well. So in
Yeah.
terms of the nail industry, what is your whole take in terms of the progression of the nail industry?
Um, well, our industry right now, it has changed so much. It's changed so much just in the past 10 years. But I think what's happening right now, what I've noticed is like, and this is as far as like manufacturing and things like that are concerned. A lot of the products and things that we get over here are coming from Asia. They're coming from China. They're coming from Korea. They're coming from places like that. When you get to the top of the food chain, there is almost like a monopoly on pigments. And Asia has a monopoly on pigments. Two of the biggest producers of nail stuff, they have a headquarters in the US, and then they have a headquarters over in Asia. And so what has been happening and how it's been is um, you know the producers of these products were producing solely for the purpose of private labeling, meaning I have the brand, my brand is Wildflowers. Like I can find one of these manufacturers, work with their chemists, tweak formulas, do all this cool stuff, produce my. I think they're starting to see how much money people are making doing product lines. And now it's like they're not their morals, but like their morals are kind of just going out the window, and they are themselves starting to produce products to compete directly with the people and the companies that they're producing the products for. So it's really crazy. Like you can see in places like AliExpress and Amazon, where before they were only producing for people, now they're producing stuff and they're putting it out there, and the prices are going up and going up and going up. I've noticed in places like Amazon and AliExpress where like they were selling, this or that for $2 a bottle, and now suddenly it's rising and it's rising. And what they're doing is they're sending people over to the United States, popping up a warehouse here, getting one thirsty nail artist, like who wants to be like a nail celebrity, putting them at the helm of the company as like the personality or the person that's like the workhorse to make all of their videos. And now they're able to sell this stuff for competitive pricing, like based off of, whatever, like a bottle of gel polish. I would say the low end here in the US is maybe $12. For like a 15 milliliter professional grade bottle, anywhere from $12 to like $20, where they would produce it before and just put it out in a place like AliExpress for, $4 or something like that. And now they're popping up warehouses in the US, and they're finding people to make videos for them. And now they're selling it for $12 for a bottle. So there's a lot of stuff kind of behind the scenes that's happening, that's kind of crazy. And I know that it's happening, and I see that it's happening because I'm very connected with like the way that things are manufactured and stuff like that. On a level of like salon and things like that, I think press-on nails have made a huge boom. And I'm really excited about that because I've always sort of been into press-on nails. I tried teaching classes on press-on nails back like 5-6 years ago. Nobody even cared or wanted to take the class. And then like fast forward to the pandemic, I did a YouTube video where like I kind of went over the basics of doing press-on nails, and it's probably like, I don't even know how many views it has, like a zillion views. So, and I'm excited because I always wanted press-on nails to be a thing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they just, never were. And I think there's so many advantages to having them, be a thing. The fact that like, somebody who maybe doesn't do well dealing with people can still do nails and can still make money doing nails without having to deal with the people aspect of it. And that's
Right.
besides just minimal customer service, but you don't have to sit there and hold hands with someone for 2 hours.
Mm.
So I like the way it's going in that regard. Licensing, stuff like that. I mean, I feel like our education is still a hot mess in this country, and I don't know if it's going to get better. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, we have all these regulations, but like, do people really actually regulate? Like, are people actually out there like inspecting and regulating? And, when people are operating illegally out of their homes, like, does anybody actually really care? And I feel like half the time the answer is no. And so that's going to start to really change our industry. And I don't know whether like, they're just going to throw licensing out the window altogether eventually, or what'll happen. But there's like pluses and minuses for all of it. I'm not like for or against that. I just, I feel like it's just out of our control half the time. So
yeah, I find it very interesting of what you said in terms of the nail industry, because I think the education system could be better, just in terms of like how you said licensing, especially with cleaning, disinfecting, understanding biohazard, understanding those type of things. And I like how you said press on nails, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about press on nails, and especially since the pandemic, it's becoming a huge thing. And I'm getting into press on nails, and I sell press on nails on my Etsy. So, but yeah, I think press on nails should be a thing as well, because I think, it's something that you could, wear, and you could take them off at any time or leave them on, so you have that type of option, type of thing. But I definitely agree with you that there is some tweaks to be made in terms of the nail education system within nails, because with the education system, especially because I took cosmetology courses to get my cosmetology license in high school. And so they'll teach like a small aspect of nails. So they don't teach it to a full extent to help you get prepared for the nail industry.
right.
So especially within nail education classes, like from the people that I've interviewed previously, they say, they're all about acquiring these hours instead of getting you fully prepared to a depth for the nail industry of owning a salon, booth renting, understanding insurance, so this is stuff that a lot of us don't really know to a great degree, if that makes sense. So I do believe, like, of course, the products, are getting a lot better and things like that. But of course, there should be some tweaks within the nail industry that it just has to be improved, especially with manufacturing, and like I said, with different parts of Asia, those types of things like that. Now, how would you define success?
I really think success is just being happy and having like peace, honestly. And I think it looks different for everyone. I think that there are people who come into this industry because they want to go to a nursing home and they want to do manicures on the old people that can't afford to have their nails done. And for them, getting their license and having the ability to go and do something like that, that's success for them. And that's what it looks like for them. For other people, they want to come in this industry and build an absolute empire. And, maybe they will be able to do it. Maybe they won't be able to do it. But for them, I think that would be their success. Some people want to be salon owners. Some people want to do editorial nails. I think it's just really figuring out what you love and what you're passionate about in this industry. And I think also trying to keep from getting burnt out. I think it's really easy to get burnt out. And even me, like, I didn't think okay, first of all, I never imagined that I would even like be doing nails at all in my life. So, if the day that I like surrendered my life to Jesus, if somebody would have said, oh, like you're gonna do nails, I would have pictured myself in a Vietnamese nail salon, like with a little desk, like somehow doing nails. That's what I would have thought. So to do what I do, it's a huge blessing, but at the same time, I struggle with trying not to get burnt out. I struggle with the stress. I mean, we have customer service still that we're dealing with. I've got manufacturers that are screwing up our bottles and putting the wrong label on this one and this label on that one and the wrong color in the bottle. And I mean, it's like, there's just always no matter what, you're always going to run into issues and stuff like that. So like trying to just take care of myself, so that no matter what, I can still have like joy and peace and happiness. And whether that means scaling up, whether that means scaling down and scaling back, whatever that looks like, I think just finding that for, an individual. I think that's what success is in this industry.
Most definitely. I can agree with that because, of course, for those of us who own a business or who are, or maybe just being an influencer, like you have to wear so many different hats. And,
Yeah.
I like how you truly mentioned that, especially with self-care. I think self-care is very, very important. And that's like with the nail competition with NTNA, you got to find that. It's hard to find that balance because you're worried about trying to build a set of nails within 15 to 30 hours, because that's how long it's going to take. And it's a lot of work. And especially within my season, it was a lot of work, and you have like bouts of stress and stuff like that. And sometimes it's best to learn to take a step back, and and of course, don't put so much pressure on yourself. And sometimes with success, your time will come. So that's another thing too. And also being prepared to seize those certain opportunities that will help you propel as well. I think that helps most definitely. Now, in terms of within the nail industry, how important is to really like explore the world, to really travel and get to understand the different aspects of the nail industry?
I mean, it just depends on what you're really trying to do in this industry. I've had the opportunity to travel all over the world as a judge with Inja. It's been awesome. One of my favorite places to go is Argentina. I'm going for my third time this year. We're taking like a competition team. By the way, if anybody wants to go, hit me up because we're looking for some more people on our team. It's like one of those experiences that is just priceless. Getting to go to another country, getting to compete, getting to experience like the culture, all that stuff. It's really awesome. And I think that it helps to grow you as a person. I think also like, there are countries where they're just so poor. I forget who it was I met. I met at a photo shoot one time and she did a charity for, I can't remember her name, but it was in Latin America somewhere. And she's like, these women go to these resort towns and they literally have like a suitcase full of like just nail polish, like this random collection of nail polishes. And they're doing nail art on people with like a toothpick, and that's the reality for certain people who do nails in certain countries. In Latin America, I think nails, like in Argentina, they were just introduced to nails probably 20 years ago. So before that, like it just wasn't a thing. And so Virginia Arello is her name. Really, she came here to the US when she was 16 and worked with Danny Hale with Hand and Nail Harmony. Went back to Argentina. She's like the Avita of like nails in Argentina. I mean, she brought that back, opened a school, and she has trained like thousands of nail techs, and everybody, like, I mean, she's like the godmother of nails in Argentina. And so it's really interesting to see even the regulation in different countries. It's very interesting to learn about it. For me, I think as a company owner, like Brazil's a country that likes to be very self-sufficient. And so like, I think the only things they import are like Coca-Cola and like a couple other things. They're not importing wildflowers like into Brazil. They are a country that wants to produce and manufacture everything from within. So it's interesting for me to learn about that stuff, but like, does it actually pertain to what I do on a daily basis? Not really, just because like, I'm here in the United States and these are my people that I get to reach out and touch the most, the ones that I see and educate the most. And I think knowing that, it's like when you have a kid that's a brat and you take them on a missions trip and really show them what it's like in another country. It can be sort of like life-changing and earth-shattering for them to see that. And I think it's the same thing with the nail industry, to realize like how rich of a country we are here in the United States, and how we just have everything at our fingertips in the United States, education wise. I mean, we're just so blessed in this country. So I think, could someone spend their whole career, in the United States and never experience any of that stuff? Absolutely, they could. But I think it's really neat to be able to broaden your perspective, when it comes to this industry.
Yeah, most definitely. And last but not least, how could you define your impact in the nail industry?
I mean, I really aspire to educate, and that's really, I guess, more than anything, what I like being known for. That's what I like to put my time and effort and energy into. I love studying the process that happens in your brain as you're trying to learn or perfect a technique. And I think that's just the journey that happens from like not knowing to like finally knowing and understanding. There's something inside of that I'm so like obsessed with and so passionate about. I love learning the different ways that people learn. I love being in a classroom. I love writing curriculum so much. I love taking that curriculum, taking it into a classroom and teaching people, whether sometimes even for fun, I'll get people in, when I write a class, I'll get people that aren't even nail techs to come and sit in the class, because you get kids out of school that don't know crap. I'm like, okay, we're going to start with a coat of black. And I assume that they know it's gel polish and they're trying to put nail polish on a nail. So it's like, really, I guess, staying in that place of just the learning process is where I love to be so much, and where I pour myself into that. And I know like that not everybody sees that. You might see like the products, or you might see this or that, or you might run into me at a trade show or something like that. But I really hope that it's nice when people can acknowledge when I do a class or when I teach a class, like getting that positive feedback from them about my teaching and stuff like that, because I pour myself into it. And when I go teach a class, it's like, other people that I've worked with were like, oh, like it's the end of the day. It's like 5:00 and we're at a show or something and I've taught all day. And they're like, come on, we're going to go out. And I'm like, oh my God, no, I'm so just exhausted and spent from teaching all day, because I just literally pour everything that I have into teaching when I get to teach. And so I hope that that's my impact on this industry. I guess more than anything.
Also, where could people find on social media, and how can people support your business?
They can find us. Our website's wildflowersnails.com. We're having it kind of revamped right now, but that's going to be sort of a central hub that leads to everywhere. We have Wildflowers Nail Products and Academy, I think, on Facebook. If you look us up, my personal Instagram is at Wildflowers Nails. Our business is at Wildflowers Nail Shop. We put out so much free education every week. And so whether you are in a position to buy products or not, we really don't care. We just love to educate people. And so I have like oodles and years of education on my YouTube channel. You can go to YouTube and just search Lauren Wireman. My YouTube channel will come up, but there's just so much education out there. So those are probably the best places to find us. You can just Google me or Google Wildflowers Nails and you'll get to the right place.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for jumping onto the show. Your work is great. I love the knowledge that you spread and how much you love education and helping other people. So keep up with what you're doing. It's amazing. And thank you so much for jumping onto the show.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. This is awesome.
You're most welcome. Take care.
Okay, you too.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. Be sure to click the bell for notifications. Also follow me on my social media platforms and visit my website, ASIATHABIRD.com, and be on the lookout for more interviews to come very soon. Take care and stay beautiful.